Imagine facing an incredible challenge only for an angel of the Lord to show up. How would you respond? Let's see how Daniel responded in this week's Abide. Hi, I'm James, and this week's Abide episode comes from the passage in the Our Daily Bread devotional from Monday the 29th of July. Now, cast your mind back to when you were a young child. Like me, you may have had an invisible friend. They might have been our stuffed animals that we talked to, or fictional people we invented but found comfort in, but they usually had one job: to help us feel safe and that we were never alone. Back in the Old Testament though, Daniel found comfort not in an invisible friend, but in hearing from an angel, a real-life heavenly messenger who had been sent to remind him that although he could not see God, God was with him in his circumstances. The angel was there to remind Daniel that he's not alone and that God was working on his behalf. So let's take a closer look at the passage and try and get a sense of what that would be like. We're reading from Daniel chapter 10 and looking at verses 10 to 14. But if you're able to, why not close your eyes and imagine yourself in Daniel's shoes while I read. Imagine having been mourning for 3 weeks, eating nothing, and then being addressed by this angel. A hand touched me and set me trembling on my hands and knees. He said, "Daniel, you who are highly esteemed, consider carefully the words I am about to speak to you, and stand up, for I have now been sent to you." And when he said this to me, I stood up, trembling. Daniel was startled and trembling at first from this visitor, and understandably so. You and I would probably be startled in fear too. In fact, Daniel was so overwhelmed that he fell to the ground with no strength left. That's how abnormal a circumstance this was. And while Daniel was the only one who could see the angel, those that were around him knew something was going on and were terrified and fled. But as overwhelming as the angel's appearance was, it had something urgent to speak to Daniel about, something that will bring hope to his hour of need. And I find these next words rather striking. Let's read. Then he continued, "Do not be afraid, Daniel, since the first day that you set your mind to gain understanding and humble yourself before your God, your words were heard, and I have come in response to them. But the prince of the Persian kingdom resisted me 21 days. Then Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me because I was detained there with the king of Persia. Now I have come to explain to you what will happen to your people in the future, for the vision concerns a time yet to come." Okay, so it sounds like this angel has been through a lot in order to get to Daniel, but let me read that first part again. "Since the first day that you set your mind to gain understanding and humble yourself before God, your words were heard and I have come in response to them." Daniel had made a conscious, active and responsive effort to set his mind on the things above in the spiritual realm rather than what he was dealing with in the physical realm. This passage goes on to talk about how Daniel was so overwhelmed by this messenger that he fainted again, but awakened from his weakness to hear the words in verse 19, "Peace, be strong now, be strong." God provides a vision for what will be provided for Daniel's community, which is confirmation that he loves them and hears their cries. Now today we probably don't hear of these specific circumstances happening around us, but that doesn't mean that God isn't listening and responding and appearing to us today and giving us his strength and peace through the pain, because he is. Amidst our dependence on God, spiritual warfare is constantly happening around us. It might be hard to imagine, but it's occurring every hour of the day, and oftentimes those battles we face daily, either in our heads or physically or spiritually, are shaping us and positioning us to set our minds on Jesus. And our faith in him grows in that process. This faith in Jesus is many times unseen, but the evidence is all around us. The evidence of Jesus is all around us. Not only was he physically sent by God to come as a human being and die for us, but he left behind his Holy Spirit when he was raised from the dead, which is present all around us and alive within us. Like my imaginary friends I found comfort in as a kid, God has given us someone to play that role, but this time in reality, the Holy Spirit, protecting us and fighting for us, even when we can't see it. It can be hard to believe, especially when we don't see any evidence of God hearing us and responding to us. But we can trust his promises that he does hear us and that he is near to us. Why not let us know in the comments below where you're trusting God to respond to you this week so that we can be praying for each other. Make sure you hit subscribe if you want to get each week's Abide every Monday, and check the links in the description if you want to read or listen to this episode instead. Take care, and we'll catch you next week.